Japanese Tales, Dying Castle. Long ago, the great master Enin went to study the Buddha's teachings in China, so as to pass it on to our own land. In 845, he encountered Emperor Wusung's terrible persecution of Buddhism. Temples were being razed, and monks and nuns were being seized and killed, or forced back into lay life. Enin was almost caught too, when he fled into a hall of the temple where he was staying. Soldiers went in after him, and desperate he hid among the sacred images. And the soldiers were surprised to find a new Fudo among the Buddhas on the altar. They were also suspicious, however, and when they lifted the Fudo down, it turned back into Enin. They reported this alarming transformation to the emperor, who decided that being a foreign monk, Enin should simply be expelled from China. Greatly relieved, Enin fled for the border. Beyond the distant mountains, he came to an isolated compound with a high wall around it, pierced by a single gate. It was good to see a human dwelling. He learned from the gatekeeper that the establishment belonged to a rich man. The gatekeeper asked Enin who he was. "I am a Japanese monk, and I came to China to study the Buddha's teaching," Enin replied. "But now I am trying to escape this terrible persecution." The man remarked that hardly anyone ever came here. "Why not stay a while?" he suggested. "When things are quieted down, you can go back to studying." Enin accepted gladly, and the gatekeeper locked the gate behind him and led him into a bustling compound filled with buildings. He was given a room off to one side. Next he went looking for a good place to practice his devotions. He found no sign of Buddhism or of monks, but in the back, toward the mountains, he heard a pitiful human groans coming from a building. Peering anxiously through a crack in the fence around the place, he saw people tied up and hung in midair, with jars below them to catch the dripping blood. Horrified, he called to ask them why they were being tortured, but got no reply. Then he tried another spot and heard an answering groan. Beyond the fence, people were lying on the ground, deathly pale and emaciated. Enin beckoned to one and asked again what had brought them to this pass. The victim slipped his wasted arm through the fence, and with a bit of wood traced the following message on the ground. "This is Dying Castle," the victim wrote. "People who come here are first given a drug which deprives them of speech, then fed another which fattens them. After they are hung up, and their skin slit all over so that their blood drips out, and the blood is used to dye tie-dyed stuffs, which are then sold. All of us are being tortured this way because we did not know about this trap. You will find in your food dark grains like sesame seeds. These are the drugs that robs you of speech. If they try to feed them to you, only pretend to eat them. Get rid of them and groan if anyone talks to you. Then escape as fast as you can, but not through the gate because it is locked and impassable." Enin returned to his room, and a meal was soon brought to him. In the food there were small black grains, which he slipped into the fold of his robe and later threw away. When a servant spoke to him, he only groaned in reply. The servant was deceived and gave Enin next the drug to fatten him. Enin pretended to eat this too, but did not. When he was alone again, he turned to the northeast and prayed with desperate intensity to all the good powers of Hiei, his home mountain and monastery in Japan. Suddenly a large black dog appeared, caught Enin's sleeve in his jaw, and tugged him away. Enin thought it best to follow, and the dog led him to where a brook entered the compound, a place he would never have found on his own. Once he was outside, the dog vanished. He ran wherever his legs would carry him, till he came to a village beyond the mountains, and described to a curious villager who he was and where he had been. "How awful!" exclaimed the villager. "That's Dying Castle. No one who goes in there ever returns. Only the Buddha's aid could possibly have gotten you out. You must be a saint." He immediately prostrated himself before Enin. At last Enin made his way secretly back to the capital, and in 846 Emperor Wusung died. The next emperor halted the prosecution, so that Enin was able to complete his stay in China profitably and return to Japan with a rich story of holy wisdom.